the big decision this Friday is Doom or Animal Crossing. Are you gonna get either one?
I have Doom. I have Doom for I have it for my X.
But the new Doom.
Oh, yeah.
Tomorrow is the new Doom.
Oh, damn.
It's two paths that really will determine two different futures.
What vision do you have for your immediate future?
I'm honestly thinking Animal Crossing because I want to build a better, stronger society with bells everywhere, Medicare for all, and a beautiful little island in the sun.
Yeah, I found myself.
That's my vision.
Yeah, I feel that. I think I've subconsciously, at the moment, I don't think I have $60 to drop on a new game.
Welcome to Strange Conversations. My name is Austin Kenny.
My name is Dylan Bennett.
And today we will be talking about Stephen Malkmus's traditional techniques.
Yeah, new one from the Malk Daddy. Definitely new direction.
Yeah, this one came out on Matador, as all Malkies do. And a question I kind of wanted to pose to you before we really dive into this album is something I've been thinking about, drawing the comparison of a lot of this album to some Pavement sounds, because it's Stephen Malkmus, former frontman of Pavement. But do you think it's fair to draw those comparisons when kind of criticizing an album or talking about an album? Or do you think the album kind of deserves its own light and we should try to avoid the Pavement discussion as much as we can, if you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think that the new directions that Stephen Malkmus has been taking, especially with these last two albums, with Groove Denied, a sort of electronic based album, and now this one, a sort of psychedelic heavy sort of world in music influenced folk album. I think that these directions, I have a feeling that they're maybe subconsciously, maybe consciously, because his music before these two albums was so heavily compared to his output with Pavement. Not that the Jicks didn't do anything to set themselves apart, or that his other solo albums weren't actively working to set themselves apart. I do think there are ways in which they sound different, but I also think that there probably were quite a few critics, quite a few fans who just would compare his stuff, I mean, myself kind of included, would compare his stuff to Pavement's work, and kind of, that thought of like, this isn't as raw as Pavement, this isn't as sort of playful as Pavement, or this isn't as whatever.
But I think this album definitely feels the most Pavement, I guess.
Really?
I know I was kind of saying I wanted to avoid it, but I don't know, something about it really, I get a lot of more Pavement-y kind of vibes. Or even have you listened to Stephen Malkmus's first solo album?
Yeah, I actually was listening to a song off of it a couple days ago that I really liked, and really reminded me of Pavement, especially some of Pavement's slower numbers. I think it's called The White Church or something like that.
Yes,
yeah, good. Church on White, that's the song off the 2001. Was that the very first album he put out after Pavement broke up?
Yeah, and I think this album is kind of reminiscent of that. I don't know, it's definitely it's more acoustic, and he's trying to get here. He is making a folk album, and I think that's what's so cool about Stephen Malkmus is with Grooves Denied. He made a pretty solid electronic album, and this time around he's like, all right, this time I'm doing a folk album, and he really nailed it. There's a lot of songs that I've been listening to a lot and have been pretty calming in these crazy times that we're living in. Specifically the song What Kind of Person, that's the song that has a really beautiful woodwind instrument solo in it, like a flute thing going on. That's definitely one of my top tracks for sure.
Yeah, I think this album for me, it was very evocative of, I was picking up elements of folk music really in the sense of
it kind of has this sort of old world, sort of like pastoral sort of quality to the music that I think like the closest thing that I was thinking of when I was listening to this, like, yes, a lot of world music. I was hearing some sitar, and I was hearing these sort of like oud instruments and like these different stringed instruments. But also I was thinking like some of the more kind of ethereal folk music, especially I think Joni Mitchell. I was really with the guitars, with these acoustic guitars that sound like they're maybe using some like opening tunings. I was really getting a vibe of Joni Mitchell and some of her more experimental folk music albums. Like she has one album that I've listened to because I saw it on a documentary about Jaco Pastorius that's called Hejira, and it's a very interesting mix of sort of like jazz and folk and world music. And this album kind of reminded me, like the soundscape of this album reminded me a lot of that kind of like open tune guitars and wash of like strings and different like kind of eclectic world instruments. And I think just the opening track, the Jan Man, that first single, and Shadow Band, both were really excited by those two tracks. But then listening to that open track, ACC Kirtan, which I'm not really sure what that means, but I remember like that track is so dense and has quite a lot going on and has this sort of arc of like building these different instruments in. And it's a really beautiful track. This album is like, it's definitely it's a very calming and very serene sounding album. I wasn't expecting that when you originally told me that like Stephen Malkmus is making a folk album. I was kind of expecting something more like dude with his acoustic guitar, like Bob Dylan sort of songs, like maybe kind of like a little bit of like a Bruce Springsteen sort of piano and guitar, sort of like that kind of folk. But this is much more sort of like a psychedelic folk, and I thought it was really cool and really, really well done.
Oh yeah, I think he really nailed it. And I mean, even the first single, Shan Man, when he released that, I was pretty excited for this album. It's a cool song that in the end of it, I don't know if you picked up on this vibe, but kind of like a lot of the noise in the outro and kind of in the background of the song really gave me like a parquet courts sort of vibe, you know, a lot of that just like atonal sound, just filling in the background. Yeah, it's such a, you know, expansive look at what folk music can be, you know. It shows that it really isn't just Bob Dylan sounding stuff. It's really like it pulls from all over the world. Folk music is such a wide and, you know, comprehensive style of music, and I think Malkmus really like brought a ton of different folk into this album, and I think that's what makes it so fun to me, you know.
Yeah, I agree. It's like I'd happily hear some more material in this direction. I think this is a kind of direction I could also see bringing in like some of the more Pavement-y elements into this sound, and it would still gel well. Because I think the one thing that ties this to like what else I understand of like Stephen Malkmus's like music, whether it's Pavement or his other solo stuff or the stuff with the Jicks, is that like this album is a very lyrically like very clever album. Like, I mean, Stephen Malkmus is a very interesting and like clever lyricist, but a lot of Pavement lyrics are sort of a kind of stream of thought, sort of almost Michael Stipe-esque kind of poetics that don't always make sense, but in a kind of poetic way. Whereas like this album, I think, has like actual moments of sort of like narrative clarity, and especially The Greatest Own in Legal History. That song,
that's one of my
like,
favorites.
is funny. Yeah, it's like a funny song. Like I was listening to the lyrics and I could clearly make out like the narrative of the story, and I was really enjoying actually understanding what Stephen Malkmus is talking about for once.
The lyrics on this album are really fun. From like Shadow Band, kind of like the I don't know, it's Shadow Band's like a bouncy song is how I would describe it, you know, like with how the lyrics go. And I just have a lot of fun listening to this album, though it is tranquil as well. You know, you can tell Stephen Malkmus isn't just like making music or any sort of profit, really. He's like making music because, you know, he's just having fun doing these sounds and like trying something new that he wants to try. So, you know, he's done electronic and folk now. I'm interested to see like what his next attempt is, you know. I think he picks he knows what he wants to do, and I think he nails it. So I'm excited to see where he goes.
I think that I'm getting the sense that both of us quite enjoyed this album, and I think that it's interesting to see that this is the direction he goes as he like when he does something separate from the Jicks. And I wonder, I don't know much about the personnel on this album. And that was one of the questions I had, is whether this was, I know he's playing with other people, because I think I saw some sort of blurb about the band, the other instrumentalists on this album.
There's a lot of collaborations on this album. I'm pretty sure that I'm curious about, and I can hear you typing away. So
yeah, I'm trying to find out.
To hear what you find. And I would look it up, but my internet is too slow to Google it right now.
This is sort of on the spot research that I think shows that we are not necessarily the most professionally minded podcast, but we'll get there one day.
The power of audio editing.
Exactly.
Who will even know that they're Googling stuff?
Conceived while recording Sparkle Hard with the Jicks in Portland. So he's using, apparently it's saying that he's using a variety of Afghani instruments. So he's one of those being a bouzouki. That's cool. He's saying traditional techniques is new phase folk music for new phase folks. That's very Malkmusian. 12-string acoustic guitars. I can definitely hear quite a lot of 12-string acoustic guitar. Aha.
Oh,
Here we go.
We got the intel.
Traditional Techniques is the product of Malkmus and Halfling. Halfling is the studio that he recorded in. And Halfling engineer and arranger in residence Chris Funk of the Decemberists. And playing guitar on the album is a friend to all, Matt Sweeney. Matt Sweeney does a YouTube series called Guitar Moves, where he plays with a bunch of famous guitar players. He does it for like Vice or something like that, but he plays in Bonnie Prince Billy and in Chavez. So that's cool. And the Decemberists, I get that. Yeah, they've got sort of a kind of new folk sound. Interesting.
See that. Opening track, the ACC Curtan, there's a woman singing. Does it say anything about who that might be?
There's no mention of it, no.
Interesting.
Those are the only 3 people that the blurb on Bandcamp mentions.
Well, I think maybe because you're on the Bandcamp page, now would be a good time to take a quick break from talking about strange techniques and talking about how important it is, as best you can, trying to support all these bands that can no longer go on tour. Really important to try to buy records and t-shirts and band merch right now and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's something that is really unfortunate, the moment that we've come to, but we really are in a moment where it's so much smarter for people to stay indoors and to just self-isolate for a little bit than it is to risk transmitting it to somebody who might be more at risk for serious harm than you. But with that reality comes the fact that tours have gotten canceled, music venues have shut down, small record stores and record labels aren't getting business, and they're always teetering on the edge of, will we or won't we make it another year? And so, I'm at a point where I'm not working at the moment because my job was closed down because of the disease, but I still am trying to think about I try to think about how much money do I spend on small things that don't mean a lot to me, like inconsequential things, like how much money do I spend on things that might distract me for a little bit, but then how can I maybe redirect some of that into things that I really feel worthwhile putting money towards? And one of the things that I always find that makes me feel good is when I know I'm supporting artists and musicians and labels and record stores that mean a lot to me. So one thing that I really like that I found is that all the record stores that I really like in my area have set up systems of either doing online orders where you can just pick up at the store, you don't even have to go inside, they bring it to your car, or doing shipping, like ship through Discogs. A lot of them have Discogs accounts. A lot of labels lately have been they'll do certain days, or they'll do certain special times of the day where all the proceeds of all sales go directly to artists. Bandcamp has been doing a lot of really good things about that. They've been making it so that artists are getting basically, I think, all the money from the sales.
Yeah, I know we're not sponsored by Bandcamp or any of these people, but it's just like important to, get artists right now. That's not the only people who need money, but it is a tough time for musicians. Definitely look to those smaller bands because they're the ones who are struggling the hardest out of the bigger name bands. They'll be all right, but there's some really small like indie bands all around the country or all around the world even, that are out of work for a long time, and try to support them as best you can.
It's scary out there to think about where if we don't offer just a little bit of support to the businesses that we take for granted every day when things are running normally, it's scary to think about how they could all be gone when all of this is over if we don't if we don't do something to look out for our fellow peoples, especially those who are. Music will never go away. Just think about the way that you consume it. If you're just streaming on Spotify, there might be a better way that you can do it. There might be a way that makes a difference in the livelihoods of artists that you love. We gotta look out for our fellow people. It comes around what goes around, as they say.
There can be a silver lining to all this quarantine, and I feel like there's going to be a boom of creativity and creation in this kind of time of self-isolation, that we'll see a lot of interesting music come out of artists being isolated.
Like, I think I saw the other day that Mac DeMarco is planning on releasing 2 albums because he's doing quarantine. And he's like, you know what? Like, I might as well be productive and might as well do something nice for my fans. And I think that there'll be a lot of bedroom projects that come out of this. Yeah. From artists that we know already, and from artists we love already. But I think there's also just going to be a lot of new music from people who haven't had the time or haven't had the sense of flexibility and just the sense of boredom, really, with not doing anything else, to just sit down and be like, you know what, let's do it. Music. I think I'm excited to see what gets created in this time.
I'm a little nervous. Who really are vulnerable, who have economic anxieties, and who aren't fully as stable as some of us might be, and take it for granted. I'm trying to find that silver lining. Not be totally.
It's important to try to find it somewhere. Yeah. For sure. Cool too to even see how many artists are coming together and doing all these virtual concerts and things like that, and still finding ways to bring people together through music. Because it's such a crazy time that it's important for artists to keep doing what they're doing, because it brings just so much relief to so many people, and the fact that they're still making music and still trying to bring people together is awesome to see. Even I even saw that like Stephen Malkmus with this album, him and his band were doing like a virtual practice session the other day, or because they're not going on tour, they couldn't practice together, so they're doing like Skype band practice, which is crazy. Everyone's just trying to make it work as best as they can, and but I think there will be an interesting boom of creativity that comes out of all this.
Yeah, I agree. They must have some really good Wi-Fi connection to make a rehearsal work without lag, just absolutely destroying their their practices.
Did you get either of the Moog or those Korg, the free
I got that. I got that Korg one. I gotta mess around with it for sure. I have a feeling that once I unlock the ability to get a little bit more control over it and figure out maybe a way to export it out of my phone and onto like my laptop or something as like a sound file, I think then I'll definitely be able to make some noise with that.
It's so much fun. I only got to mess around with it for like 30 minutes, but like those 30 minutes I was pretty deep in it. And you can make a lot of wild sounds with it. So yeah, people don't know Korg. Korg is that one, right? The Chaos, I think.
Yeah, Chaoscillator.
The Korg Chaoscillator.
With a K, spelled with a K.
That's a free app right now on Android and iPhone that like you can just get lost in for a while if you're looking to kill some quarantine time.
Yeah.
And even Moog too, they released a synth app that's only on Apple products, unfortunately. So I haven't been able to mess around with that. Yeah. But oh wait, Dylan, there's something popping up on your screen.
Oh god,
right
I should have installed my antivirus. Uh-oh.
Oh no, Dylan. There's a lot of hot new singles in your area.
Doctors hate him.
You won't believe.
His love cures coronavirus. And he's giving it away for free.
Do you want to start us off this time? You got any hot new singles?
Yeah.
You're itching to get out there?
This is the first time that I'm coming hot to the table with a full-on, hot-blooded, fresh new single ready to go. But a band that I liked and I have liked for a while, but as of lately has like they've done some serious chart jumping in the Dylan's personal rankings as of late. And that's Proto Martyr. They are a post-punk band from Detroit. They have a couple of albums under their belt. I want to say they have 3 or 4 with maybe a couple of longer EPs mixed in there. But they just make a real solid sort of atmospheric, spacey post-punk with very sort of, I'm going to use the term Stipian to kind of describe a form of lyrical content that is a little more poetic and interpretive than it is straight up narrative. They are a very Stipian sort of lyrical content. Their singer has a very gruff, gravelly voice, but his lyrics are very REM-esque, very Pavement-esque. And they make a pretty righteous noise. But they just came out with a really sweet, heavy new single called Processed by the Boys that is really good. And I've been listening to it a ton. And what I've gotten out of the lyrical content that I do understand is that it's sort of it's an indictment of our current age of being beholden to like tech bros and like tech bro culture. And I think it's like a takedown of the fact that like everything we do, we don't really think about the way in which it's all processed, quote unquote, processed by the boys, and like, you know, how that's all this bias and implicit like things that we take for granted that like these tech bros have so much control over in our lives. And it's just it's a heavy as hell track. It is so good. It's got me so excited for the album.
See, you know, I've always wanted to like Proto Martyr, but I don't know why they just like they've never like fully hooked me on a track, and I wanted to like this one too when you told me about it. And something about them, I think it's the vocals. It's not nothing against the lyrics or anything like that, but something about the voice just doesn't like really click with me super well. And I'm sorry, I don't feel the same way about the single. I mean, I like it, but Proto Martyr is just a band that I've always wanted to like more than I actually do. And I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, it hurts, but I mean, I felt the exact same way, and I don't even know what went off in my brain, but I felt the exact same way until like literally, like not even kidding, like 2 weeks ago. It was just this strange switch in my brain where suddenly I was like,
I've had that happen before.
Yeah, I don't know. It was very strange, and now I'm just like voraciously listening to Proto Martyr, and man, they have some phenomenal albums, and I have high hopes for this next one. I think it's really gonna be just what I need to get angry, but also to stay motivated and not be a sort of depressive kind of angry. and that's what I need right now.
I know. The single I'm bringing to the table today, kind of on the other end of the spectrum, not quite as heavy as Proto Martyr, but the new Phoebe Bridgers song, it's called Garden Song. I haven't really listened to her a ton before, only a couple tracks. It's really nice, kind of soft, gentle, sad kind of music. Garden Song is a really awesome single that I've been listening to a lot recently. Phoebe Bridgers, just incredibly beautiful and haunting voice. I heard the song yet. I would definitely check it out. She's got a really nice sound.
Did you add it to the podcast playlist?
What's that, Dylan? We have a podcast playlist?
Oh, we do. We're gonna make it. I'll make it public right now. There we go. And make it collaborative. There we go. Now it's public and collaborative. I hope that doesn't mean that anyone can add stuff to it. All right, I'm tanking this bit a little bit, but yeah, we have a podcast playlist on Spotify. It's called Pod Talk, and it's got a picture of our ugly mugs on a purple background with some fun. There's some fun little word bubbles coming out of our heads. It's, if you've seen our YouTube or our SoundCloud picture, it's the same picture, and it's got everything that we have reviewed and everything that we've talked about on it, including Miss Phoebe Bridgers. Let me hear what you like about this song, because I've yet to hear it yet, but I have heard of Phoebe Bridgers. Is she in Boy Genius? No, Better Oblivion Community Center. That's what it is.
She's in both of
okay.
those. She's in both. Yeah. I don't got a ton to say about it. It's just a nice song. Listen to it if you wanna relax. Maybe cry a little bit, but that's all right. You can cry.
Would you say that it's similar to Snail Mail? Because lately I've been obsessively listening to Snail Mail.
No.
Oh, no.
It's got some really cool like oscillating sounds in the background, like what kind of stuff. That's but like cool. With some gentle acoustic guitar on top of that, like a really like thick layered sound, but still like a really gentle song.
All right. Have you ever heard of Grouper? It's a solo project of a woman named Liz Harris.
Grouper?
Grouper. If shoegaze and like bedroom pop and folk music met, so it's this really reverby, really spacey, kind of a little bit kind of gothic, not goth, but sort of gothic, kind of somber and very spacey, very reverby, kind of a little bit noisy and granulated like folk music, but it's very, very chill, very atmospheric, very soft, and she has a very, very beautiful, haunting voice. And that's is that sort of a vibe? I mean, I guess I just need to listen to Phoebe Bridgers' music.
Yeah, and I gotta listen to. Sounds pretty cool. What was that name again?
Grouper. Grouper, like the fish.
And it's gonna be in our playlist that's on Spotify, correct?
Oh yeah,
Dylan?
It will. I'll put up one of the albums. The one album I've listened to all the way through. It's very dark. It's called "Dragging a Dead Deer Up a Hill."
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, another single. I only listened to it a couple times, but I dug the sound so far, and it's another Matador band I haven't listened to a bunch, but I do enjoy everything that I hear from them. But Perfume Genius has released a couple new singles for their upcoming album, and yeah, Perfume Genius is really banging. I've only heard one of, I think there might be two new singles that they put out. I don't know I think it's one person, but I really don't know enough about them. Just heard a couple songs, and yeah, they really rip. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's, I don't know, Bowie-esque in the sense where it's just like a very big, wide sound where there's like a lot of different things happening that, like, it's not really, it doesn't feel like a band so much as it is like a whole operation behind the scenes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've only heard one song by Perfume Genius, but I remember it's called Queen, and it's this really, really cool sort of like, but it has another sort of like, it has a kind of regal quality to it that almost is like, I would say is almost borrowed from like pop music. Like it almost has a sort of like a superstar, like diva sort of like presence to it, like something that you would imagine from like Lady Gaga. But it's also got this like really cool, inventive kind of like abstract production that you definitely wouldn't find in like most pop songs. Perfume Genius, I believe he's a solo artist.
Yeah.
I don't know if he does. I don't know if he works with like a large band or if he works with like a producer or if he just does everything on his own. But yeah, the Queen is such a cool song.
Yeah, definitely check out these new singles though, because Queen is Perfume Genius songs that I'm a huge fan of, and Describe is the new single.
Oh,
And
not on the
it's
floor.
oh
Yeah, and Describe.
Right. Yeah, and I really like the image.
Yeah, that's a cool cover.
I think has been really cool too. I think it's very reminiscent of like Iggy Pop, you know, just kind of like shirtless, stretched in odd ways.
Yeah, and I believe like I know that Perfume Genius is kind of one of like the front runners in sort of like the new wave like kind of queer indie pop. I first heard about them, I can't remember who it was, but somebody mentioned them in an article I read about like this sort of like renaissance of the world of like independent queer music, and they mentioned Perfume Genius. I'm trying to remember where the article was. This was a while ago. This was like in college, like either like junior or sophomore year of college. But that was when I first heard of Perfume Genius and first checked out that song Queen. I think there's a really cool aesthetic of old school punk. I think old school punk sort of appropriated like queer visuals, like Iggy Pop and like the leather clothes and like Lou Reed, all these sort of like icons of punk. And then coming back around to someone like Perfume Genius, who's like taking those same like visual styles, putting them back into like a queer context, I think is really cool. Because punk was gay as hell. And I think people like to not think of it that way because they think of like, I don't know, they think of like the more macho, like hardcore punk. Early punk, I mean, like Lou Reed was in like tight leather, and like, you know, singing about all this dirty taboo stuff.
Yeah, man. Queer and punk are intertwined for life.
Oh yeah. I did see that it's a pretty cool little remix. It's not necessarily super new, but Automatic, who we talked about in our first recording that we might release one day if we can find those files. They did
botched, but yeah, maybe we'll find them.
We'll find it. But they did a disco remix of the song Calling It. And I listened to it and it's pretty cool. It's very dancey, and it's a remix by a band called Peaking Lights, who I've never heard anything by them, but they actually came on a Pandora station at my work the other day, and the song that got played was this like really heavy psychedelic like dub music, and I thought it was really cool. I don't think all of their music is quite like that. I kind of listened to a couple songs and they sort of have like a kind of eclectic electronic music sound, and I'm not necessarily a fan of everything by them, but the remix they did of Calling It is really solid. And they have this one song called Birds of Prey that's like this really weird wonky dub song that's really cool and kind of reminds me of like Berlin and Europe and sort of like Euro dub punk kind of music.
Speaking of Birds of Prey, did you see the Birds of Prey movie?
No, I have not. I have not been to the movie theaters in quite a while. Avengers Endgame was the last movie I think I saw in theaters.
Well, I saw that Birds of Prey is getting released on this coming Tuesday, I believe, digitally. I really, honestly, like, I loved that movie so much, and I will say it here, and I will stand by this. Birds of Prey is a way better movie than Joker is as a comic book movie. I just like I could watch Birds of Prey like 100 more times, and I don't really want to see the Joker again. I saw it twice, and that was enough for me. I don't know. I just like think as a comic book movie, Birds of Prey works a lot better, whereas Joker is a movie about a guy throw a Joker theme onto it, whereas Birds of Prey was just like so much fun. And the fight choreography is done by the John Wick guy. So it's just
cool.
like super, super duper awesome.
Yeah, I think it's been an odd time for movies. I think that I saw somewhere that studios are going to basically like speed up the process from like releasing movies to streaming and like DVD because of this whole quarantine situation. And I think that just made people kind of realize that like this whole arbitrary like theater release and then like you wait a couple months and then it's available to like stream it. I wonder if people will be upset and not want to go back when it's like, I don't want to fucking wait for it to be done in the theaters so I can watch it at home. I mean, I think
we're gonna get too greedy.
Yeah, I know we are. Well, but like, is it too greedy? Like, what if they was just like, hey, you can this movie is released on this day, and you can pay the same price you would pay for a ticket to watch it to stream it once at home. How many people you think would be like, hell yeah, I'll pay $10 to watch this movie once the day it's released. I'll bring my friends over. We'll have like a little movie watching party. As much as I do think that there are moments I've had in movie theaters watching movies for the first time, they were like insane. Captain America picking up Thor's hammer in Endgame, totally an amazing moment. And also the fact that I saw it in a theater on like the debut and everyone lost their shit, like that was an amazing moment that I like wouldn't trade. But like, I also think I'd have that same sense of awe if I was able to do that with like a big group of my friends, you know? Like,
yeah. Hey, but I love the big screen, baby. I love that.
Gotta get
that big old projector.
Gotta get that IMAX 3D moving seats that spit on you to make it feel like you're in the water.
I want 4D, more 4D. That's what I'm running for in my future presidential.
I'm just waiting for VR movies.
I know. I think Ready Player One is gonna become real life now.
Yeah, we're all just gonna live in like our pop culture VR worlds to escape the disease outside.
To the end of our time here, Dylan, but I want to bring things back to the traditional techniques of Stephen Malkmus, and I want to get your final verdict. And here on Strange Conversations, only one question matters: are you going to listen to it again, or are you not going to listen to it again?
Oh yeah, I'll definitely listen to this again. It's a very eclectic sounding album. It's a very interesting sounding album. It is very densely produced, and it's one that I want to get on vinyl because I want to be able to like sit right by the speaker and turn it up and like find those layers that like you don't necessarily get when you listen on like a digital file or like just like stream it or on headphones. Like I want the experience of like really hearing that lush soundscape, because it's an album that it's got a lot going on in a really interesting, really intricate, really cool way. And it's a great album to just put on in the background. It's very soothing, and I can definitely see myself listening to it again.
There's a couple tracks in particular that I've already just been kind of going back to, and that's Shan Man, What Kind of Person, and I mean, those two just in particular, those ones that jump right to my mind. I'll listen to those tracks a ton.
Yo, Brainwashed is great.
Brainwashed is really great. And there's also a live acoustic performance on YouTube that I would recommend. It's really nice. But yeah, there's just a lot of great songs on this album. You know, Greatest Own in Legal History. You know, I'm going to be going back to that one for sure, too. I was really excited with how this album turned out. And, you know, I really love anything Stephen Malkmus touches. I don't think there's any project of his I really dislike. I don't love all of them, but, you know, they're all like solid albums. He's never really released a bad album in my opinion. I would say Traditional Techniques was a success for Mr. Malkmus.
Yes, it was. I think that we're going to hear soon some exciting news coming from Stephen Malkmus, potentially in lieu of if the Pavement reunion show isn't able to happen because of coronavirus. I do think though that we could potentially get some Pavement related news if that festival gets canceled. I mean, if they're willing to reunite to play a festival, that means they've been playing together. That means that they've been rehearsing together. That means they've been making plans together. So good chance we might get at least maybe a single or like a live album. Does maybe not even new music, but just some more Pavement material.
I don't know if I'd want that. I feel like Pavement as a band with their discography, what it is right now is they're just like one band that, you know, I can listen to each of those albums and like, top to bottom and, you know, have such a good time. And, you know, you can't say that about many bands where they don't put out a bad album. And
that's true.
I don't know. I would be a little reluctant to a 2020 Pavement. I don't know. I'm fine with hearing them play their old stuff, I guess, but I don't know if I'd really want a new Pavement. I don't know how I would feel about that.
I think that they successfully dodged the 10-year curse. I think that the thing is that any artist who is in a band or making music for longer than 10 years, you cannot go more than 10 years without at least one fluke. The Beatles dodged it because they broke up before they hit 10 years. Pavement broke up before 10 years. Think of any artist that has no flukes, and I guarantee you they didn't last 10 years. And any artist that does have flukes, they either weren't good or
Yola Tango,
they lasted for longer than 10 years. Exactly. Yola Tango. I would even say the OCs have, you know, they're not all perfect 10 out of 10s. Certainly not in the Rolling Stones. I mean, good God. Good God. There might be a different rule for them. I mean, even as much as I'd hate to hate on the patron saints of indie rock, I think REM isn't exempt from that rule. I think there's a couple of things. Yeah. I think everything
for sure.
Everything after Monster, just forget about it.
Couple all right tracks. There's a few ones in their later days I do enjoy, but yeah, for the most part, yeah, definitely.
I think I just wrote it off because
definitely not the REM.
That was after Bill Berry left, so I think I just wrote it off. I was like, nah, not the OG4. Forget about it.
Yeah, it's just about our time here for this strange conversation today, and I believe our upcoming episode schedule. I think we should do Wunderbar next, and then we'll have our special classics episode after that one. What do you think? What do you think about that?
I think that sounds good to me. I also think that the next time, if we're doing this 1 week out, the next time we convene to do another one, an album I've been looking forward to quite a lot will be out. That Fax band that I showed you, their album is coming out on the 23rd, and so there'll be a cool. Maybe we could do a split episode there.
A split album ep, yeah. Or yeah. Well, I mean, hey, we got lots of time now, so maybe we'll do all three.
True.
But yeah, I think let's do you want to say Wunderbar next, because that one's out now. We can start listening to it and, you know, talk about it soon. And
that full album
then after that, it came out the other day. Great. I won't spoil too much of my thoughts now. But yeah, next time Wunderbar. And hey, listeners, if you want to get involved in the conversation, you can email us at strange.conversation.podcast@gmail.com. Is that right?
Yes. Or you can comment on, I believe you can you send messages through YouTube, like to our profile?
Probably, yeah. We're on YouTube, we're on SoundCloud.
If you DM
we'll post our email. Yeah, just contact us in any way. I'm sure most people listening right now probably know us. So
yeah.
Just hit us up any way you want to.
Send us
any music you're listening to you want us to mention, or your thoughts on Stephen Malkmus's album, even on Fungus, what we talked about a couple weeks ago, on this Wunderbar album coming up. Yeah, if you're making music, whatever. We're open to hearing about whatever you're up to. But the song we use in the beginning too is Conversations by the band Automatic. That's all we have today, I suppose, or tonight, or whatever time you're listening. My name is Austin Kenny.
My name's Dylan Bennett.
And this has been another strange conversation.
Peace. Stay healthy.